Velkommen ind for i studiet til en helt speciel udgave af PL Talk, hvor vi har en gæst i studiet, som jeg annoncerede i sidste uge, med os. Udover Jakob Gens fra The Manager, som vanligt er med, så har vi Ben Thornley med på linjen, og Ben Thornley, han sidder i England, og det gør han, fordi han arbejder til daglig for Manchester Uniteds interne tv-station. Han er kommentator på alle Manchester Uniteds kampe, og er derfor super ekspert på Manchester United. Og så er han i øvrigt tidligere ungdomsspiller i klubben. Ben Thornley, very good to have you with us here in the studio today. Thank you very much for taking part.
Nice to join you both.
Thank you.
You're commentating on every single Manchester United game for MUTV, am I right?
Yes, co-commentating with Stuart Gardner. Yeah.
So you've seen some things already this season.
Yeah, some of them not so great considering the start. I know that we've had to play Arsenal and Spurs away from home, and obviously they're going really well at the moment, and it's no disgrace to be beaten by them as long as you give a performance, which I think in both games we did. We just came up short. I think there are other games though that you would expect. I mean, we were pretty much outplayed by Brighton. We had a really disappointing result against Crystal Palace after beating them comprehensively only a few days before in the Carabao Cup. But I think that we go back to the last game before the last international break. That was a crucial victory against Brentford. And I know that United have had a lot of injuries, especially defensively. But I just feel as though offensively we're not turning the possession that we have in games and the dominance that we have in certain periods of games into goals. And then teams are coming down the other end and punishing us. I think that there are plenty of opportunities we've had already this season to be able to put teams to bed. And I know we've been unlucky. The Garnacho goal against Arsenal, for example, probably would have won us the game if that decision had gone in our favour. And, that is still being talked about now, as I'm sure are plenty of other VAR decisions as we know about.
Yeah.
But I do feel as though we're now going to start getting players filtering back. We've got a big game at the weekend that we need to win. Sheffield United may be bottom of the league, but as we've already seen, we are not firing on all cylinders yet, and any team in this division can spring a surprise.
Yeah, definitely. But you've said yes to coming on the show to talk about primarily on Rasmus Højlund. In our opinion, he's done pretty well so far. But let's start at the beginning. Hand on heart, was he at all on your radar? Did you know Rasmus Højlund before talk began to emerge that they were interested in bringing him to Trafford?
I had heard of him, I have to say, only because at his time with Atalanta, obviously Manchester United played them in recent years, so I was aware of his name. But having seen him, I hadn't seen him play, I have to admit, no, and was surprised that he was, with all the names that were being linked, that he was the one that we ended up with. And I don't mean that in a derogatory sense by any stretch. I just felt as though with the money that we forked out for him, and I know that's not his fault. This is, market values and the values that a lot of clubs, when they overcharge Manchester United, when they know that they're interested. But there has been a couple of times this season when I have felt that he's looked every inch and will become every inch that value of player, because he has all the attributes, there's no question. But to answer your original question, no, he wouldn't have been on my radar, and it surprised quite a lot of people after, your Osimhen's and your Harry Kane's, that he ended up on United's radar and then signing.
Yeah, but we talked on this show and also to Manchester United people that we were thinking, if you have that kind of money to bring new people in, is he the player you're going to bring in at this point in time? That was sort of our opinion.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think if we just forget about the Rasmus Højlund, sort of transfer, when you think that and forget that we didn't even know who he was. And like I said, I'm not being derogatory towards him whatsoever, because I think he's going to be a super player. I'm talking hypothetically here. that you would have thought, and as all Manchester United fans were, that if you were going to spend 70 to 75 million on a player that not really many people had know about and who hasn't really got going yet and has not proven himself in one of the top leagues, then a lot of people's sort of thought process was, well, why not just go and spend the extra 15-20 million and go and get Harry Kane? That was what my thought process was, and I'm sure a lot of other people's, but that didn't happen. So Rasmus Højlund comes along, and first thing you think about, and you look and think, wow, he looks like a proper centre forward. He plays in the number 9 position. He gets in the box. He holds the ball up. He's got a great physique for his age. He's got a super shot ratio. He's good in the air, and he's quick. He's quick. He has the ability to be able not only to come short and hold the ball up, but to run in behind, which this season we've been lacking a little bit. So he also gives us that option. And I just feel, having watched him, like I said to you earlier, in a couple of these games, and I thought, wow. And I don't want to, because of his physique and because of how he looks, people are going to compare him to Erling Haaland. And I don't think that's fair. Erling Haaland has been playing in the Premier League now for a couple of seasons, and he obviously came having done extremely well in Germany and other places. So Rasmus Højlund has time on his side to be able to develop into the sort of player that can give us what Erling Haaland does give to Manchester City. But I feel as though that is where the similarities should end, because he's a Manchester United player, he's his own player, and I'm sure that he will find his own way with these players that he's now going to be playing with.
Well, what's your impression of him so far? How's he gelled into the team, do you think?
He seems like an extremely likeable lad. I think you can tell the chemistry on the field that players have really taken to him in the dressing room and while they're playing. And that's important, because when you come to a big club like Manchester United, it can be very daunting. And we've seen many players over the years sort of not be able to cope with the sheer weight of pressure of the shirt on your back that comes with the club, its history, etc. But Rasmus Højlund seems to have sort of broadened his shoulders and puffed his chest out and said to himself, there's a lot being asked of me here now, and I'm gonna start by proving any doubters that I may have wrong. And he has been really impressed. Not in every game, I have to say, but then he's only just coming to a new club. I remember a certain Cristiano Ronaldo coming to Manchester United in his first season, and it took him one full season. And we have to understand that for any sort of a player, there are exceptions. Wayne Rooney was an exception, I have to say, but it's going to take time. It is going to take a little bit of time. And certainly you have to give any new player, wherever they've come from, whatever the background, whatever age, you have to give them a full season to be able to show certainly glimpses, but more and more what you may be able to produce out of a long period of time. But I'm really excited from what I've seen from Rasmus Højlund so far.
Jakob, havde du spørgsmål? Ja.
Yeah. For me, he looks like the number 1 choice for the number 9 at the moment. It looks like he's ahead of Martial, for example. Do you think that in the ideal world, that is it a bit too early to put that amount of pressure? You're saying that he should at least get one full season to settle in and to prove himself and to get the Premier League under his skin. Do you think that in the ideal world you would have another number 9 to replace him in some matches? Do you think and do you think that Manchester United perhaps would look for that number 9 in the next transfer window?
In the next window, that's a really good point. To answer the first bit of your question, yes, there has to be somebody that is ready to come in. But not only that, there has to be somebody, whether it's whether it's Anthony Martial, whether it's Marcus Rashford, there has to be somebody challenging him on a regular basis, because that is what will improve him. Ultimately, that is what will improve him. Now, we've seen Marcus Rashford have a really slow start to the season. I know that he played well and scored for England the other night, but in a Manchester United shirt this season, where there's been a lot expected of him, for whatever reason, it's just not quite clicked for him yet. And the same after a really sort of encouraging sort of couple of cameo appearances. The same for Anthony Martial. So yes, the shirt at the moment, if he's fit, goes to Rasmus Højlund, and rightly so. But there has to be a point where, yes, he needs a rest, or yes, there is somebody challenging him in his position that is maybe sort of outperforming him. But that can only be healthy for the team. Now, if the manager decides that there is Rashford or Martial or indeed somebody else within the squad that is capable of coming in and doing a job in that position, then I'm sure that he will have worked that out by now, because the January window is fast approaching. But we all know what's going on with Manchester United off the field at the moment. So does the manager know, what funds, if any, he may have available should he want to strengthen in January? And that is something that is obviously outside of our thought process and our control.
There's already a bit of a hype around Højlund, but we were wondering, is that because he's the only thing to be hyped about at the moment when talking about Manchester United?
Well, I think when you see the signings that we've made during the summer, you think straight away, because for the wrong reasons of Andre Onana, who's obviously come in, and again he's probably the epitome of somebody that comes into a massive club, and for whatever reason, he's just, I don't know, maybe a little bit too uptight. I don't know what the reason is behind it, but obviously he's made some very uncharacteristic mistakes. Now, at a club like Manchester United, it's how quickly you recover from those mistakes. And listen, United haven't been monitoring him for a long time, and he didn't get to the final of a Champions League with Inter if he's not a very good goalkeeper. And I'm sure that over time he will prove it. Every goalkeeper makes mistakes. It's just they're more scrutinised. David De Gea, for example, made a lot of mistakes, but in the back end of his career, and when I say a lot, I mean a lot that people jump on the back of and really highlight, where they do forget how often he saved us in the time that he was there. So it's very, very easy to sort of jump on the bandwagon and flick it over to Rasmus Højlund, who is going to be our saviour, our goal scorer. So I don't think it's right to say that he's the only one that we should be excited about, because anybody that we bring into the football club, we should really be getting behind, and not more so at the moment than Andre Onana, who's going through a particularly tough spell, which I'm pretty sure that he will come out of. But certainly, Højlund for me looks like the type of person, and don't get me wrong, he needs help. We can't just rely on him to come into Manchester United and hit us 25, 30 goals in his first season. But what will help him is if he's got other people to feed off, he's got other people setting him up, he's got other people running off him so he can set them up, etc. If you've got a team of 5 or 6 forwards that you can choose from, and that they're all going to weigh in with between 8 and 15 goals, and you've got one that will excel, which we hope is him, to go and score 25 goals and take some of the pressure from Marcus Rashford, which seems a little bit ironic when we're saying that Rasmus Højlund is under pressure, but Marcus Rashford will also be under pressure to replicate what he did so brilliantly last season for us. So, I am excited about Højlund. I was to start with. He'll take a little bit of time to get going, but I thought his performance in Munich was sensationally good.
Yeah.
Is there any? You've seen some big names in the Manchester United shirt over the years. Is there any Man United legend you'd like to compare him with, playing wise? I mean, stature from.
Do you know what? I wouldn't. I wouldn't say so. I mean, we've had some tall strikers. I'd say it's going to sound really strange, this, but because of his build and because of his strength and because of how good he is in the air, and because he's left-footed and he's quick and he doesn't mind running in behind, I suppose there's a little bit of a likeness to Louis Saha.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
All right. That's the only real sort of comparison that I can draw. You know, he can hold the ball up brilliantly, good in the air. He's quick. He's strong. He's powerful. He's got an eye for goal, which he should have as a centre forward. So the one that immediately springs to mind to me is Louis Saha. I mean, we've had all calibre and all manner of forwards here. And I suppose that you can take bits of every single one of them and mould them together and make the perfect centre forward. But yeah, for me, it would be Louis Saha if you were just asking me to think off the top of my head now. Yeah.
So you're picturing a bright future for Højlund at Old Trafford.
Massively so. I think he has absolutely all the attributes. And from seeing what I can see on the field, even though I've never met him, I've never been in his company, I can see that he has the right attitude as well. And that is hugely important when you come into any football club, but certainly to Manchester United, and certainly with the position that they're in now. They're going into a period now where they really need to start winning matches, because once the first, 8 matches that everybody's played now in the first two transfer window, first two international breaks, this is when the league table starts really to take shape.
So settle in.
And the teams that you imagine are going to finish in whatever order, but near the top of the table, you can already see that is starting to happen. And United can't allow another gap to start forming. So it's imperative that they do get a win on Saturday night and just close it that little bit more, because obviously next week is the Manchester derby.
Yeah, it is. But on Tuesday you're playing FC Copenhagen. Have you seen a bit? Have you seen a bit of their games in the Champions League so far?
I've only seen the highlights of their game against Galatasaray. Which, if I remember saying, they were leading 2-0, were they not?
They were.
Yeah,
exactly. And should never have drawn that game. Never. No. They should have won.
Yeah. So listen, and again, we know how difficult that's going to be, especially because we have put a lot of pressure on ourselves, having taken no points from our first two games. And as I said about Arsenal and Spurs, Bayern Munich, it's no disgrace to go and lose to Bayern Munich, especially scoring 3 goals as well. You know, there won't be many teams go to the Allianz and score 3 goals and still come away with nothing. But we did, unfortunately. And then we lose at home to Galatasaray, which wasn't expected, I have to say. So these next 2 games, home and away to FC Copenhagen, we know they're not going to be easy, but we have to win them both. And I would imagine that if we don't, then we will be looking at Europa League football in the new year.
Just sadly. Well, you can go and win that. That's been done before.
Well, it has, but we'd rather stay and fight in this competition, especially to get out the group stages. It's Manchester United. We should be doing that.
Yeah, that's true. Just on a finishing note, there's a lot of talk at the moment of the David Beckham documentary. You played with Beckham winning the FA Youth Cup. Well, what's he like as a person?
He was a great guy. I had the privilege of spending, my first sort of 3 or 4 years at Manchester United, spending a lot of time with him and Gary Neville, Chris Casper. There were Mark Rawlinson. There were a lot of us that were very close in the youth team. And he was a great guy. He really was. Obviously, nobody could have back then predicted, how his life was going to pan out. And I'm sure he couldn't either. But he was surrounded by great family. He was surrounded by good people, both at the club and at home. And he had a work ethic, which is what I'm saying about Rasmus Højlund. He was out there. I'm not saying he was on his own, but he would probably spend the longest and was the most dedicated to the one thing that he is still the best at, and he's still the best at it because he still has the Premier League record, and that is, set piece deliveries, free kicks, dead balls. I don't know whether James Ward-Prowse will pass him. I expect he probably might. But for his record to have stood for that long, it just showed how much work he put in and the dedication. And he didn't just do that at Manchester United, he did it everywhere else he went. He just holds the Premier League record for free kicks here. But he worked incredibly hard, both for club and country. And I, for one, don't begrudge anything that he's ever done in his life. He deserves it, every iota.
That's very good to know. Ben, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. We're fingers crossed for a bit more success for Manchester United in coming weeks. Not to give you another heart attack. Like I imagine you were close to a heart attack against Brentford.
That was as dramatic as I think it will ever get this season. But it was very necessary. So thank you to Scott McTominay for that.
Yeah. Tominay time, not Fergie time. Tominay time. That's the new term.
Well, thank you very much, Ben, for
You're
taking
welcome,
part.
guys. No problem.